welcome to the School Run. I'm Jane.
And I'm Liv.
And we are going to share with you the best conversations we have on our school run.
We will invite guests and debate topics that affect and resonate with every generation.
We all remember our own school run, so maybe have a think about yours.
What do you remember?
Hello and welcome to another episode of the School Run podcast. We are in such a privileged position and we say it every week, but honestly the amazing guests that are joining us on our School Run chats is just phenomenal. If you haven't joined us before, Liv, my 16-year-old daughter, and I started this podcast back in February 2023 just to share our amazing chats on the school run because we had a very long school run to Clitheroe where she went to school. And I said, let's capture these like a time capsule. And that sort of developed. And now we welcome guests on that school run with us to hopefully empower, guide, inspire young people just to know that every day is a school day for all of us and you don't have to have it figured out at school. How are you feeling? Explain where we are, Liv.
Well, it took me quite a while to find. And honestly, I can't explain the actual morning I've had. I went to the orthodontist and then I had to, my stepdad went out and took the dog to a pub with him, which I was like, please don't get drunk and leave my dog in the pub. I would cry. And then I had to get the bus to the train station. The bus was late. Just as I was running up the platform, the train left. I was like, oh, I'm going to have to get the next one. And we were supposed to be here about 3:30 and this train was at 3:20. At 25 past, and I was walking around and I had to ring you and I was like, where am I going? I don't know where I'm going. But I'm here now.
Yeah, so we're in Preston City Centre. We're at an amazing solicitors block. I mean, this is just a fantastic experience to record here. We're joined by the wonderful Jenna Atkinson. Jenna is a associate matrimonial solicitor, award-winning, I have to say. She's not going to like these things that I'm going to say, I don't know, but these are all what I know about her. An award-winning matrimonial solicitor. She's a mum, wife. She's heavily involved in her community. I know she's a fantastic networker. She's passionate about Bolton Football Club. She works as a trustee, as a charitable role within domestic abuse. Bolton Hospice. This list is endless. This chat's going to be incredible. Thank you, Jenna, for having us with you.
Oh, you're welcome. And it's Friday.
It's Friday.
Sorry, I'm just going to move this camera.
The best school run of the week.
The best school run of the week. Is that what you remember about your own school run, that Fridays were probably the best?
Yeah, and my little boy's 2.5, but I get that feeling on a Friday already because that's his preschool day.
Yes.
So that's my Friday feeling when I pick him up.
Oh, that's amazing.
Well, it's summer holidays, isn't it? So he's with grandparents an extra day.
But
they're probably going to have less hair by the end of summer. But,
oh, it's amazing. Just to give our listeners, because quite a lot of listeners have been following the podcast for many months, but we first met, I think I was doing a speech, a keynote speech at the EVAs. Well, no, it wasn't the EVAs, it was the Pink Link Networking.
Yeah.
So Pink Link Networking, Coral Horn organises that amazing networking group. Yeah. And she also does the EVA Awards. And we've come across a path. Our paths have crossed in both of those situations. And we've stayed in touch by social media, and you're one of the most amazing ladies who came up to me and said, I love your story. And when my son's old enough, he's coming to Little Voices.
He is.
And he was only a few months old then, so we've stayed in touch since.
He's coming to Little Voices and he's also playing football. But you can do both.
And do you know what? I'm always saying to my brother-in-law-to-be, he has a son and he's not too sure about sending him to Little Voices. And no. I said, well, you know what? Award-winning football stars need to present themselves on the TV.
It's true. And he's a singer and he likes his football. So, you can do anything these days, I think.
You absolutely
do what you love, not what is traditional for male, female. Do what you love.
Follow your heart. Do you agree with that?
I
Liv?
agree with that totally.
So let's get stuck into the juicy stuff about you. I mean, you know, we've talked to on previous episodes to different types of solicitors. There's such a vast array of law to go into.
Yeah.
Why matrimonial for you?
I think I knew I wanted to do that at sixth form, I would say, when I was studying it. So I've always wanted to help people. And when you predicted your A's at school, which I always was, I mean, my memory was better then. I've still got a good memory, but I've been to university since. There was a lot of apple sours consumed at Newcastle University. But I always wanted to help people, and I can't stand blood, so doctor was never an option. I would have liked to be a doctor, I think, if I could stand, you know, seeing body parts. So I think for me, matrimonial, because I was very good at written stuff, so that's why I went down the law route. So the other thing they used to say at our school was vet, doctor or lawyer. So vets, I'd be crying every day, you know, if I had to put pets down, putting everybody's pets down, and when, I can't bear it, I couldn't do it. So I think I wanted to help someone, but stick to what I was good at. So that kind of, for me, was matrimonial, because I think what people don't often see, because I'm very bubbly, and, you know, I try and make light of situations for people, but at the same time, people don't see the upset people go through. You know, I have to deal with that daily, really. So I feel like I am helping people through a really bad time, because a lot of people that come to us, they don't necessarily expect to be in that position. It's come out of the blue, you know. It's like they've come home from work one day and the husband or wife has left. I'd say that's more the norm than you think.
Yeah.
Obviously things lead up to it, but for some people on the other side of it, that could be completely out of the blue.
Yeah.
And so it's a shock for them, isn't it?
Yeah. So I always describe why I do this job. Someone's a shell usually at the beginning, and I see them going away a butterfly. I know it sounds a bit cliche, but honestly, when it's all over and people have a new lease of life, that is why I do this job, and I will continue to do it. So I joke saying I want to go and open a bridal shop and be on the other side of it, but that is why I do the job, when you actually think, why do I do it? So I'm trying to help people in my own way, because I can't stand, you know, hospitals and putting pets down. I can't even bear the thought of putting my dog down, honestly.
But it's really interesting what you've said, that obviously you were a straight A student, I'm assuming, at school, so flying high.
Yeah, it wasn't A stars then, or whatever it is.
Oh, like the numbers.
It was just A. A was the top, so that's what I was aiming. 5 A's I got.
Wow.
So,
At A level, 5 A's.
You did 5 A levels.
Yeah.
What were those choices, Jenna?
One doesn't count, general studies, which ironically I've got no common sense. So what that proves, I'm not really sure. General studies. I'm still confused to this day how I got an A in it. I think, I'm trying to think now, you put me on the spot. English language and literature.
Yeah.
Law, religious studies and media. I did all the written. So
heavy essay subject. So straight A student, and what I was homing in there was that at school, or the schools that maybe you went to, I went to, Liv went to, there was a very, I would say, narrow set of choices to go into. It was sort of geared up A level, university, and like you say, those top careers, vet, doctor.
Yeah, it was. I would agree. If you were in the top for your A's or whatever, they were the... I mean, that's not why I did it, but it was kind of given to you as those options. But I was having a chat with one of someone I met networking, and we were saying yesterday, you know, hairdressers, for example. My hairdresser, and I can't believe I'm giving her a shout out on this, but I will, because I think a lot of her. So Ellie is one of the most intelligent people I've ever met. Very business minded, 21. You know, oh no, I might be knocking years off of there. I'm like, oh my. 24 actually. But, you know, hairdressing, it used to be that's for the people who can't do anything else. You know, that was the attitude to it. I've always thought the opposite of hairdressers and nails and beauty, because, put it this way, I couldn't do my own hair and my own nails.
Yeah.
It's a skill in itself. And when someone's running their own business like that, it actually takes a very business mind to do that. So I actually would hope these days at schools, you know, it's encouraged to do whatever you're passionate about, not just what, you know, if you get all A's, do this.
It's not just about the expectation, is it?
Yeah, I was thinking that because as well, like you said, like the beauty, they're also like talking to people every day, which builds a lot of skill. Like if you look I'm not saying all doctors, but usually, do you know, like the very, very academically people who are very focused like that, they'll be incredible doctors and they'll know absolutely everything. But maybe when it comes to like the bedside manner of actually being able to talk to the patient, it might not be as good. But then those people who have learnt the skill of hairdressing, which is really hard. I mean, I could only do like 2 Dutch plaits or something like that.
I couldn't do my hair like she does.
But then still like talking to people as well and getting to know them. And
but it's running the business and making it a success. So, you know, I really believe whatever career you do is a skill. You don't have to be in a career like law to be intelligent. She's got different skills to me. You know, but I think that's what I would hope would change in schools from when I was there.
It'll be interesting when your son's growing up through the education system, what happens. I'm not sure whether it has changed all that much, if I'm honest, because that's the reason behind the podcast in many ways. Let's broaden out all the options that you've got.
There's so many. But I would say do what lights your fire, makes you happy. Because that is what, I mean, having my son has given me a whole new other meaning to life. Your mum probably says this to you all the time. But, you know, when people used to say to me, oh, they're always your child, well, that I'm that mum now. Those eyes will be the eyes when he's a 40-year-old man that I won't ever unsee. Those baby's eyes. So it gives you a whole new perspective on things. And I think now I just want to, you know, bring him up to be a kind person that will go out of his way for other people, because I don't always think that's the attitude people have either. You know, and we don't want a me generation. We want a let's help everybody generation, because I think sometimes it's easy to get swept up in your own life. And you know, so people can be struggling who are in front of you and you don't even realise it sometimes, because you know, someone, if you just say, I saw someone on my way home the other week on the train and they looked a bit upset, and I just said, are you okay? And they told me they'd had a bad week and whatever. And then I was just chatting to them on the way back and got off at Horwich, and they were like, oh, thanks for asking though, because sometimes you don't want to interfere, do you? But
also you don't want to see other people's struggles.
No, and I knew something wasn't quite right. You know, you can judge people, you can judge a situation even on a train, I think, with people have said to me before, are you okay? And I've really appreciated it. You know, when I was pregnant, I was crying all the time and people used to say, you're okay. And then I know when he had his first day at preschool, I was beside myself in M&S. And this woman came up to me and was like, you're okay? I was like, no. I was like, but George has gone to preschool. It's honestly, Liv, it's all too emotional.
It really is emotional. But it's really interesting. So how do you separate professional Jenna and all what you're dealing with? Because it won't be easy, the stories you're listening to and perhaps the cases that you've got to navigate. I mean, I can't even imagine. Maybe you can give us a flavour of the things that you come across, but how do you deal with that?
I think you don't switch off to it because you obviously really care about it, or you wouldn't keep doing it. But I know the children cases I deal with, so I don't deal with care work because it wouldn't be for me. I'm too, I would be getting too upset with situations like that. But the children cases I deal with are kind of where mum and dad are arguing over the time they spend with the child. But even that, you can put a year into it till the outcome, which obviously me even at the end feels really happy for someone, you know, when they get to see them. Because sometimes if I'm for the parent that's not seen them for a year, I mean, that can really take its toll on someone. I can't imagine getting up for 365 days not seeing George. I just cannot imagine that in my head. So I think since I've had him as well, I can kind of get on a level with people more about it. Because before you kind of thought, well, why are they bothered about one overnight? Like now I'd be like, oh, I'd really struggle to not see him like most nights, you know. I have the odd baby-free night, but
but it's hard to decide. It must be hard to decide that and reckon. I mean, I've obviously been through a divorce, and I don't know if you've listened to our very first episode about living. You've never lived with your dad, have you?
No.
But honestly, I absolutely was adamant that we put Liv first. Yeah. In every decision.
That's the thing you have to sometimes make people see, because, you know, sometimes I get someone coming in saying, I want all the time with them, which I can see that you would, because you're used to being a couple, putting your child to bed every night, you know, and then from that to separating, it's very hard to get your head around. So I can understand that, but then I'm the biggest believer in a kid needs both parents. You know, ideally you need, whether it's 2 men, 2 women, 1 man, 1 woman, it doesn't matter who these parents are. They need, you know, if you've got 2 parents who love you, even if they're separated, to me, you can make it work.
Yeah.
So
I agree with that. That's exactly like my family. I mean, I've got you. You obviously love me, don't you?
Yeah, I do.
And my dad. Yeah. I mean, my mum's always been like very open and honest with me about like the whole situation behind like the divorce and everything. And for a lot,
sometimes I wondered whether I was too honest.
Yeah, but I don't, because like I mean, for a while, I guess I was kind of mad at my dad, because I was like, well, why? You know, it's kind of like, in my head, it was like, it's your fault. Yeah. But now I'm kind of like, do you know what, though? It probably happened for the best, because, I mean, you're both very different from each other. And I imagined you living together, and I was like, that would not work. But even as well, like, I know that like my dad loves me and he'd literally do anything for me. Like if I called him right now, I was in London, I was like, Dad, I need you to pick me up. Like he'd be there and he'd come and pick me up. Like,
but that's what you have to make people see. That you've got what my signature line is, which if any clients listen to this, they'll know I've said it. That at one point, I mean, I don't want to picture what I'm going to say, but at one point, you loved each other enough to make that child. So that's what I try and take people back to thinking, because that's how I would think, you know, if me and mine didn't work out in the future, which hopefully will be those 2 little old people walking along the beach. But I just think at one point there was the love there, and the child needs both, you know. It's not nice for the child to have to feel they have to choose, I think, sometimes. So,
and I hope that we've never had that situation for you. In fact, probably the pain has been caused because you've wanted us to be together, I suppose.
Yeah, I guess I've seen like my one of my little half brothers, that I've seen how maybe he's like the messenger between 2 parents. I'm thinking he's not even out of high school yet. Like he should just be like enjoying his life and going where he wants to go. And like my other half brother who like doesn't know our dad. And that's sad for me to see as well, because I'm like, he's such a good person. And sometimes I do just wish that they would have a relationship, but then again, I
know, and sometimes if you leave it, like, it's no one's fault if it's just left, but then it's harder to repair, I think, when it's, you know, it's like anyone, if you have a fallout, the longer you leave it, it's going to be harder to make it work again. And I do think life's too short I always think, I don't like going to bed if you've had a row with anyone. I have to put it right.
Sort it out. And I mean, let's face it, you'd be out of a job if everybody managed to do this.
Yeah, that's true.
Because you're brought in to sort these things out, aren't you?
That is true. But,
but because you get for some people, I guess they get to the point where, and sometimes it's not even them, it's their influencers around them, I guess, that are influencing those decisions.
Yeah.
And saying, well, you should be having this and you could have that. And then that makes someone...
And sometimes the finances can blur, what someone wants to do with the children. So when they're arguing about the money, sometimes people then say, well, you're not seeing them then, Whereas to me, they should come separate in a way. I know they interlink and it does affect... both need to be considered, but in a way, whatever you agree on the children should not affect the financial settlement.
I think they're very separate too.
You can't say, oh, if you give me more of the house or whatever the asset is, then you can see your child more. It doesn't. That's not fair to them, is it?
Because I never saw it as, I don't know, I suppose it's how you see your children. I didn't own Olivia.
No.
She wasn't.
People, I think sometimes, especially when there's another person involved, that's when people can't see past it. If mine went off with, a 19-year-old, I probably couldn't see past it at first. But then, so I get it when people end up in situations like that. I'd be angry as well, or he might go older, who knows, because I feel like the older ladies like my husband. They do. They seem to be, especially the ones at church. They seem to.
I think your husband will be laughing at this podcast.
He probably will. In Aldi, he told me he got chatted up the other day in Aldi. I said, "Bye, you," and he was like, "Oh, I was buying you some flowers." I said, "Oh, lucky me from Aldi." And then he was like, "Oh yeah, this woman said to me, oh, she's a lucky lady." And I went, "Oh well, go back to Aldi then, Matt, and leave me to watch Netflix."
It's so interesting. I'm not saying that ours was all really, happy, but I do think that, at times it was other people that influenced what happened, and that I think that can be a real struggle. But we found our way through, which is fantastic. I've got my current husband had a question last night because I told him who we were interviewing today.
Really?
Do
you know what I feel like? And he just wants to shout out.
He does. He wants to be here, really.
In everyone.
Yeah, he does. He really does. But he went through a divorce, and he was saying to me, well, I think it all boils down to what kind of solicitor you actually take on. And I was like, what do you mean by that? He said, well, whether it's a solicitor from a franchise organisation or a solicitor from a independent. I said, and I think you're just confusing this. They're just the same one in the same solicitor. I said, and I run a franchise business, so I'm obviously all pro-franchise.
I think we have different styles of dealing with it. So, like here, one of the reasons I do love our team and working here is it's very conciliatory, child-focused with a children's situation, and constructive way to resolve it, rather than, I would never badmouth anywhere, but other places might not have that attitude. It's get it into court, which isn't necessarily the best thing for people. Like, I would hate to have to go to court about my son. That is like my idea of just how have we ended up here from a happy marriage to that. So I try and exhaust every other means before we... Obviously, some cases have to go to court. There's no other way to resolve it. So
is that because the solicitors are, or because the clients are saying, yes, we do that? How does that end up
say if
there?
one person is just on a children case, adamant, a mum or dad, it happens to both, can't see the child and they're not really giving any reason, it's just we've split up, you're not seeing them. Obviously, you're not really going to get anywhere without trying mediation, and then if they won't engage with that, go to court, because otherwise, that person won't engage with the process. But I'd say the cases I deal with, say if I've got 60 going on at once, probably about 7 in court. so finance and children. So it's the minority that go to court, because often there's another way to try and sort it out. And if you get two solicitors like similar minded, you know, on the other side, you tend to get further.
Yeah.
So I actually prefer it when you've got, you know, a solicitor you know you work well with, to try and resolve it together for everybody's sake.
And you probably get used to who those are, do you? So when you know who the opposition is, you sort of think, I know how this is going to play out.
A lot around here are actually resolution members. So that's an organisation that it's all family professionals in it. So there's financial advisors in it as well as solicitors, but with that attitude to resolving it constructively. Not, you know, everything doesn't have to be a battle. So I'm really passionate about that. I don't think I'd ever get the other way where I want it all going to court. Like, I can't sleep sometimes when mine are in court because I'm bothered about the person. You know, I know how it feels. I know we've done all the prep and everything's ready to go, but I still feel for the person, you know, because I just find it really horrible that we all have to. The very nature of court is you've got your legal team and they've got theirs, and that's how it's set up. I mean, I've been like shouted at after court, and when I was a bit younger, I used to cry and whatever. And now if someone shouts anything at me that isn't very nice, I just think, well, I've clearly done a good job today.
Yeah, because you're projecting out what's going on for you. I'd be upset if it was my client shouting at me, but if it's the other person, I'm like, well, they're getting annoyed for a reason, so I must have done a good job. And when you mention court, because I've been in a family court room, and it's not wigs and all of that, is it? I mean, I had a whole concept in my head about what I was going to end up being in. It was, it's not like that. It's a bit like this kind of room, a bit more formalised, isn't it?
Up here, they are. Like the local ones are. Yeah, they're more informalised. Manchester's quite daunting. I've been there a few times.
Is that when it gets higher up or is
it's just because it's city centre, I think, and it's more...
Is that where they have, like, the big stands?
It is more like the TV in Manchester, yeah. So if you get one at Manchester, because if I've got a client... Obviously, I'm from Bolton, so if I get a client, like, over that way rather than Preston, Clitheroe way, then sometimes they go to Manchester. But I work with the barristers normally because we work together on cases. I know a few really good feisty barristers, so if you think I'm feisty, you've not met the barristers I work with. They're like next level to me. They're like me after rosé sober.
Hi everyone, we hope you're enjoying this episode so far. We're just cutting in to say, if you're enjoying our podcast, please click the follow button on whichever platform you're listening on. And please leave us a review. We'd be so grateful for your support and feedback. Podcasts are free to listen to, but if you are loving our school run chats and debates, please consider buying us a virtual coffee. The link will be in the description of every podcast episode, and it will also be in the bio of our Instagram, which is @theschoolrun_official. And why not give it a follow while you're there, so you can see all the updates and get sneak peeks at upcoming episodes. Thank you so much and happy listening.
When I think about like court, I mean, I think the one trial I ever watched on TV was the Johnny Depp Amber Heard on that stuff. Like, so the only one
I was hooked on that.
Yeah, I was. So I saw it and I was like, is every courtroom like that where they have the big light and the big banging hammer thing?
Well, I'm hooked on the Lincoln Lawyer series now because one of my clients told me to watch that when it first came out, and I love it. It's so good. But yeah, I think Matt knows I already like the Lincoln Lawyer man in it. So. He said I had to watch it, and now I'm just like, this Lincoln Lawyer man doesn't exist. So it's really... I love watching legal programs like dramas because everybody thinks I've got a glamorous life. It's like, no, I'm in the Northwest. I'm not in Chicago. Like, because I'm the Split.
I love that
I love that program.
I do.
But I used to watch it and think this isn't like.
It's
like
too glorious.
The northern version.
It's not the northern version. But that is what you're doing, isn't
I
it? in
wouldn't
effect?
change it. I prefer being up north. You wouldn't get me working in London.
And actually, we talked about it just before we pressed play on the podcast, that your sort of inspiration being a lawyer, or who you wanted to be like, was.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm not going to lie. Elle Woods, when I first watched Legally Blonde, I did have the boyfriend that broke my heart and all that before uni, and I was the person eating chocolates in bed, throwing them at the screen.
Oh yeah,
that was me to a T. And then I did first year of uni moping around really, and then met Matt on my, when I came home for the summer. So I feel like Elle Woods is pretty much how my life has panned out.
Yeah,
I've even got a dog. It's just not a chihuahua.
And you've got blonde hair.
Beautiful blonde hair.
Well, everybody always says I'm like Elle Woods, so I'll take it.
Yeah,
it's not a bad thing.
No.
I do always have like pink notebooks, and I normally have French nails, but they're pink because I've watched Barbie twice.
Oh yeah.
So I went pink this time.
I went to watch Barbie as well.
It was so cool. So let's talk about some of your other work and your passion for the community and where that came from. I mean, what all of these organisations that you're involved in, tell us a little bit more about that. Did the domestic abuse charity come from your work as a solicitor initially, or was it something that you'd had an interest in even before that?
I think domestic abuse, the interest in it was when people think of that, they think of someone punching or kicking or physical abuse, don't they? And when you're learning about it, it's an umbrella, we call it, of abuse. So it's emotional, psychological, it can be financial, that people don't often realise when someone's controlling the money, that's a form of abuse if you've no access to your money. It can be sexual abuse. It's not just physical abuse. So I think that's when I first started learning about it that I thought I've got an interest in this. And then, I mean, I've only ever had 2 boyfriends. I joked to Matt I've never lived, but probably haven't really, have I? But I've, like, my first boyfriend, he was very, I'm very much a one-man woman when I'm with someone. That's, I joke. You can look at the menu, but you don't eat the menu.
Yeah. You only choose one.
You can look at the menu when you're on a diet, is what I say. My first boyfriend was quite, when I look back, quite controlling over me. And I think that's why I'm so passionate about it, because often when people say it to me, it's these intelligent, strong business women or men. It happens to men. That's my biggest thing as well. It does happen to men. I've had men crying on me, in those kind of situations. It happens to both. So like when I look back, I wouldn't say I was a victim of domestic abuse, but there were elements of the way he was that was emotional abuse, which at the time I didn't see. And, people think of me as an intelligent person, but I didn't see it. It just became the norm. When we're going out for a meal, if I'm on a date, that's who I'm with. I'm looking at that person, and he would be like, who are you looking at? What are you doing? If I was out with my friends, where are you? Bombarding you with texts, which that isn't normal, is it?
No.
So, but when you're in it, you don't see it.
Yeah.
So, and then obviously since, I've been with Matt 15 years, and you see it then when you're with someone who treats you really well. Yeah. But I think it happens more than you think to people. And I think that's where my interest in it comes from. And hearing people, I'm not saying I wasn't in a really bad situation. I've heard horrific situations of physical and years of torment. I've always been strong-minded, because the one time he like whacked me against a wall, that was it for me. So I said that at 17 years old, I would not tolerate that at 17, because you don't want like that. That isn't what I would want to bring my children up in or anything. But obviously, I get why people stay. Like, I loved him. I nearly went to London, where I'm scared in London. I nearly went to uni down there to be with him. And then I thought, right, now it's over, I'll go as far away up north as I can.
And you went to Newcastle.
Yeah.
It was an amazing place to go to uni, though.
You know, when you're just like, when people say it to me, I'm like, I've been there where I didn't see that it was that. You know, it's kind of... I think that's why I want to speak about it and raise awareness of it, because it can happen to people and they don't even realise it's happening. You just think it's the norm.
Because you're in it, aren't you? Yeah.
You're in it and you love someone. When they say love is blind, it really is. Like, love is blind. Like, when you love someone, you love it. Like, I'm very a loving person, and when I love someone, I don't really see the bad in someone.
And also loyalty and your personal value system kicks in, doesn't it? Because I've been there, and I remember Liv was at her dad's, so she wasn't there, but I'd made this wonderful dinner, and it was steak and chips and peas, and put it on the tray, and the person I was with at the time never wanted to sit at the table, as he wanted it on his knee on this tray. So I'd sort of done it. And as I was making it, I mean, this was 5 years in, and I was thinking, I've not done pepper sauce. And I was like, oh, I'd be really hungry, there's no pepper sauce. Can't do pepper sauce tonight. I just remember saying to my head, and I sort of made this sauce, and I went, and I didn't make the sauce, but I made all the tea, and I put it on the plate, and I took it in, and I just heard the tray bang on the floor, and all the peas and everything dropped everywhere, and it where's the pepper sauce? And I was like, I haven't got any. And I was just really calm. But had I been a confrontational person, that may have ended up in some kind of, but I just ate my tea really subservient, and walked away from the situation and went to bed. And so when that relationship ended, I never saw that as a form of abuse, but there was lots of situations like that.
Yeah. No, it's true. Yeah, but it does, like, obviously people say it's male to women, you know, man to woman, which is, there are high statistics for that, that's fact, but the amount of psychological abuse that, you know, female to male, that's frightening as well. So I am the biggest believer that it's both ways, you know, because, you know, women can be manipulative like that. Men can as well, but I think, I don't know, women know how to use emotions with men. And I've heard all sorts of stories in lockdown. You know, I've had men coming in bits, crying, like, I've just,
You've seen all
I don't know how I lived through 2020, because I had a lot of people very upset going through hell, and then I had a baby growing in me. So I was like, if I can survive 2020, I can survive anything. When George gets a girlfriend, I can survive.
So let's talk about the domestic abuse charity. You're a trustee of that charity, are you?
Yeah.
What's it called? Where's it based? How does it help?
Yeah, it's Endeavour in Bolton. So they do a lot of work locally mainly, but they do various projects. So at the minute, one of the ones they're working on is Evergreen, which is supporting over 55s, because that's on the increase as well. So Jill, who's the chief exec there, made me cry at an event recently when, well, not in a nasty way, but with what the story she told about a granddad with his grandson, because that was abuse going on in a home when they were living together, and he was stealing off his granddad. So it happens in families as well, because, like I say, people just think man and a woman in a relationship, but it happens, you know, like that, or between other people, and, you know, mums and dads. You know, how you can ever think about being like that with your parents. Like, to me, I love my parents so much. They're like my best friends, and I can't get my head around that, how people would
take
want
from
to
them,
do that.
Them,
so they do a lot of work in the community, and they help a lot of people out of different, you know, situations. So one of the things I really like that they're doing at the minute is the worry monsters. I've already bought George one, even though he can't tell me what's worrying him at the minute. But you basically write your worrying and then leave it outside your bedroom, and then it eats them overnight, this little worry monster.
Oh.
And they're doing like a sponsor a monster campaign where everybody kept wanting to buy these monsters. So the way it works now is £20, you get your own monster and you sponsor one for a child that's going through domestic abuse. So they're then given one of the monsters, and then their carer, because it isn't always the parent looking after them, they can read what's worrying them. And obviously they don't say what, I've read what's in your worry monster, but you can know then what's worrying them, which I think is good for any child, because obviously having a boy as well, I think women talk more that, mental health can affect anybody, but I feel like women do open up more than men. So I'm really conscious from a young age with a boy to get him to talk to me, because if you can't talk to your mum and dad, who can you
Absolutely,
open up to?
yeah.
So I think like the worry monster, it's a way of doing it early on. So I think even in other families, not just domestic abuse ones, it's a good idea that they've come up with, and they do so much locally. Like I can't speak highly enough of them all, really. And Jill, I think she's been chief exec a couple of years, and she's just an amazing lady.
It's incredible, and that work is so important, isn't it? And then work with Bolton Hospice. You're passionate about Bolton Hospice. How long has that been going on? And
well, my auntie, I was just a little bit older than Liv. 17, I think, when my auntie was in the hospice, and she passed away in there, unfortunately, which I think our family, it's never really been fully the same, because my auntie was such a warm person and like one of those people you just know would always be there for you. So it's always stuck in my mind, because we were all there when she passed away, that what an amazing job they do there, when people are so ill. So I did volunteer on there for a while, but I found it too difficult to actually work on the ward. So I started doing like fundraisers. So I need to think of what to do next, really, because I did a big fashion show before COVID, and we had like loads of ages on the catwalk. I call her my grandma, because I've lost my grandma and nana, and no one will replace them two, because they were like my two apples of my eye. But my grandma's friend Margaret, she's my grandma, because she's lived like 10 years longer, and she's kind of in that role to me for the last 10 years. So she was the oldest model at 80 odd.
wow.
Oh, she's brilliant, honestly. She's every time I say I'm tired, she's like, I'm not tired. I'm 85. My mother had 8 kids. You've got one. I'm like, yeah, but so she was the eldest, and then we had a 10-year-old, and it was all like ages, all different races, religions, body shapes, and it was just celebrating
individuality, I guess.
everyone really, and raising money for the hospice. So we did that before COVID, and my best friend was in it as well, and she's been really ill, and she'd lost all her hair not long before she did that, and that was like one of the first times she'd gone completely bald doing it, and everybody was like cheering her on, and I'll never forget that, because it's so brave to just walk out there with I mean, she suits being bald, to be fair, Nicola. If I was bald, I've got a big dint in my head, so I wouldn't look as good. But yeah, I've done that, and then I did Strictly Learn to Dance with my dad, which was, I get mixed up with the years, because I feel like we lost 2 in COVID.
We did lose 2, yeah.
I forget what year, but we did it a few years ago, and as we were about to go on stage in front of 800 people, he told me he'd forgotten the steps. So I was like, Dad, we've been practicing for 4 months, like. Anyway, he didn't forget the steps.
Oh, that's good.
Thank goodness. And all he goes on about now is John McGinley, which to any Bolton fans, they'll know who we mean.
Okay.
John McGinley gave us an 8. I thought, yeah, probably because he liked the dad-daughter thing. We weren't the best in the competition.
Well, I think we've been favourable to you Bolton Football Club supporters really on our podcast, haven't we? Because we interviewed Chris Markham, Technical Performance Director, which was a really interesting chat. You don't realise the amount of work that goes on off the pitch, do you?
I mean, my dream job, just to put it out there as a sideline, would be to be Lofty. You know, just doing the mascot, just doing whatever you want to do. No one knows who you are. You know, a big lion head on and then just take it off on your way home. I played for Bolton Ladies at one point.
Wow.
No one ever expects that I can do kick-ups, but I can. Not in heels, but in trainers. And then now, I think the last few years since, I feel like it's like the golden days are coming back, which everybody there keeps saying. But when I was younger growing up, I used to love going to the match. Yeah. And I've been quite a few times recently, and I feel like it's got that vibe again about it. So
they're on the up, and they've got some good people involved.
Yeah, so I'm getting really into it again, and I love what they're doing in the community, and they do a lot for like people that need help. So I did the sleep out in March. I mean, I'm not doing it again. I've already told.
Just explain what you did as a sleep out. Tell us.
So it was that day in March that it was Arctic conditions. Was it like minus? I don't even know. But
that's like typical.
I know I had my dad's big coat on. It was awful weather.
Oh, no.
And I said at the start of the year I would do something completely out of my comfort zone. That is just, for me, that is like my idea of, being cold. I hate being cold. Like, that isn't my life, though, every night. And it was a real eye-opener to the point now, when I go home tonight, I do cherish being under my blanket in my warm house.
So you had your coat on and you basically slept outside all night.
So on the concrete just around the stadium, we're all sleeping round there. I mean, Vicky and my brother were doing that with me. Them two fell asleep. So I think most people were asleep and I couldn't sleep because I was that cold that I literally couldn't get to sleep. But I was just thinking, like, this is some people's lives. And I'm the biggest believer in when you end up homeless, I think that could happen to anyone. So, like, you know, I did get made redundant a few years ago out the blue. Completely unexpected. I just got told there wasn't enough, work for 2 solicitors, and it was a really small place. And in effect, it's been the making of me, because I don't know, I think I was not doing as well as I could there, and I kind of maybe wouldn't have thought I was good enough if I hadn't had that happen. So in a way, it's a blessing now, but you just think it could happen to anybody. So obviously we've got 2 incomes, so there was not an issue with our house. But, if you were on your own and then you just lost your job, you could lose your house, then it could spiral. And these people on the streets, they're not necessarily lazy or whatever people brand people as that are homeless. They can be, they could have had really good jobs or been in the army and they just can't.
They can't.
I mean, Matt laughs at me every Christmas Eve because before we drive down to my mum and dad's, because yes, I still go there because that's Christmas Eve. Until I've got a big kitchen, I'm going to my mum and dad's. Where I can put all the presents. But I forgot my trailer.
So before you go to your mum and dad's on Christmas Eve, it's important to you and Matt.
Oh yeah, so Matt laughs at me because I make little bags and I drive around Bolton. And anyone who I can see who's on their own on Christmas Eve, it's not much. It's just a chocolate orange and a bit of something, but with a Christmas card in. And he laughs at me every year because I'd go and do that and then I pick him up on my way back. But I think Christmas, it's so magical, and no one should be on their own at Christmas.
No, and it's that that kindness is incredible. And I know our friend who we interviewed on episode 2, Tracy.
Yeah, she does that.
Christmas Eve, the same. She does shoe boxes and takes them around with socks. And
that's what I mean.
Toothpaste and
just something because someone completely on their own at Christmas. If you think in your family, it's also. I love Christmas Day. I don't think anything tops it for me.
Yeah.
All year, it's just I love everything about Christmas, and to think someone feels alone at Christmas, I just hate thinking that.
It's horrible.
So it really is. Well, anything that you would go back and tell your younger self? Any piece of advice?
I think I'd say, when I was really a lot younger, you kind of worry about being yourself a bit, especially in what I'd call a traditional profession. I mean, things have changed and are changing. But you think sometimes you have to be a certain way, or you have to talk a certain way. I mean, I used to think, even with your northern accent, oh, will I get a job in a legal firm? Well, now I'm proud of my Bolton accent. And I am me. And I think, to be honest, I'd rather be me. And I always say to like the younger ones at Sunday school, that's your superpower. No one's like you.
Yeah.
You know, so just be you. That's
what I would say, because it's hard when you're at school to be you.
Yeah.
Because there's so many like pressures.
Rules, and even like the school uniform, you all look the same.
Same uniform. And I think there's more pressure these days on kids, I think, than even when I was at school.
Yeah.
You know, you've got to be a certain way to be this, and
a lot more comparing. I mean, I had magazines or posters on the wall, but
no Instagram and
no Instagram.
Glad at school, it would have been awful.
Oh my gosh, we didn't even have phones when I was at school. No. So I mean, it's just completely different. So
I had a phone. I think I had an orange Savvy phone. Or one that he played Snake on, which she's probably never heard of.
It's interesting as it goes by, isn't it, at the time?
Yeah.
And in terms of mentors or teachers that have inspired you along your way, who would be the person that you'd put on one of your pedestals? I'm sure there's been many.
Yeah, I mean, it's the obvious. I think your close family, I do think they instill your values in you. So like my mum and dad have always taught me, work hard for things. So even like my first car, they probably could have bought me it, but I had to save up half and, work for the other half. So ironically, going back to Bolton again, I used to work on the boxes before I went to uni, and I saved up like the tips that the box of blokes used to give me and worked hard for my first car. So I think all of that and the kindness and things that your parents drill into, that has inspired me to be the same, really, because it doesn't matter what you do for a job for me, it's how you treat people. And that's what I'm going to say to George. I want to know my son is being a nice person. That's what matters to me, first and foremost. I don't care what job he does, as long as it makes me happy.
I don't care about the grades. I don't care about
I wouldn't care about his grades as long as I knew he'd done his best. Yeah. That's all you can do. Yeah. So that's another thing. I don't think pressure helps anybody. I think, some people are academic, some aren't. That's how it is, Trades, for example, these days, you can do so much with a trade. So they're like my inspirations. And I'd say at school I had a teacher called Mr. Pierce, who he was just so straight talking, and I'm not your friend who will always tell you what you want to hear. I'm the honest friend.
And I think that's important, isn't it?
And
I would always be nice to people, but I'm honest. So if you're upset at something, or you think someone should be handling something differently, I will be that friend, because I think that's true friendship. So I always remember him being a figure that I looked up to because he was like that. And then he was also the religious studies teacher. So I think he was the one who made me believe in all that in a way and go to church, as well as my auntie who we mentioned before, and my grandma. Like, those three for me are why I've probably been a Christian for, well, since that age, really.
Yeah.
So I thought he was quite a big influence on me, to the point that when I got George christened, I wanted him to christen him, so he did come and he did come and do it, because I thought, again, I don't believe like force views on anyone. You know, whatever anyone believes is, I accept whatever everybody believes. But I thought, well, I'd like him to christen George, and then hopefully he'll believe in it.
Yeah.
What a lovely.
But he's a big school influence for me. He was one of the kind teachers at Canslade. And he still looks the same. Does he? I said I was about 15 when I last saw him, and I was like, "What's your secret, Nivea or
let us know what
more expensive cream?"
Let us know what that is. Obviously, people might want to get in touch with you, and we'll put your contact details should someone need one of the best award-winning matrimonial solicitors around to get in. I know you didn't want me to say all that, but to get in touch with you, because they've heard a bit of you and your story and how you approach things. Is there, if someone's going through a tricky time right now, they've maybe not made that call to a solicitor, or they're with the wrong solicitor and they need to change, what would you top, I don't know, a couple of tips for someone navigating a matrimonial issue?
I'd say my top, don't Google answers to things, because obviously people say I've Googled and it says this, and not in a condescending way, but I think I've done 3 years undergrad, I did a postgrad, I've trained, I've done a training contract, I've then worked under, very experienced people. You don't know the answer off Google. So that would probably be my number one.
Okay, don't Google.
Don't Google the answers. I'd probably say, look for what style you want. So obviously I've got a feisty side that can come out when required, but if you want more of a conciliatory way, then there are people that deal with it that way, like me, and there's others, that are brilliant people that will try and help you that way. But obviously we can't control how the other person reacts or behaves. That's one of the problems sometimes. One person wants to be amicable and the other one doesn't. So I'd say as well, it's got to be a two-way relationship. So you've got to get on with the person. I mean, for me, if I didn't work in law and I was going through a divorce, I'd want to know someone cared, and that's my number one, showing I care about people. So for me, that's what I'd be looking for first and foremost. Someone who, you're not just a number. You answer the phone to them and actually help them through things. And I think if I was getting divorced, I'd just be adamant on keeping the dog. I'd share the child. I'd definitely be like, Dolly's coming with me, she prefers me.
I think that's Matt told on the podcast publicly.
I mean, technically, Dolly is in Matt's name, and I do think sometimes I need to sort this out. Technically, it's a chattel, but I don't agree with that. It's like, she's my baby, but technically whose name it's in can sometimes make all the difference.
Oh my goodness.
Now and again, I do think I could do with putting her in my name, just in case they used it against me.
Oh, honestly, Jenny,
he doesn't give us good tummy tickles as me. Like, she'll have been sat there all day, because I've been in the office all day, and she'll be like dreaming of me tickling the tummy, because Matt will have just not. He'll have took her out for a walk, but that's as good as it gets.
Oh my goodness, you're absolutely brilliant. I think that's really helpful. And also the thing that you mentioned earlier in the podcast, because we always think about what we've learned from the podcast. And I didn't realise that certain solicitors almost, I'm going to use this phrase, sign up to be a certain way, part of reconciliation. Is that the word you use?
It's just more like an organisation that they advocate really resolving it in a conciliatory way.
Yes, that's what I was looking for.
And, constructive. So, like, all of us, I think, are members of that. And then, so it's national. So, I mean, I'm laughing because I said, the award thing. I get, like, embarrassed, but that's the one I was mentioning to you before we were recording, that I'm in the national awards for the Resolution Awards this year for Community Champion. So I think I'm the only one from Lancashire in that. So
well, we're backing you all the way.
I'm proud to be waving the Northern flag
Absolutely
in Westminster.
That is absolutely fantastic. Well done, and thank you so much for your time today.
It's been amazing.
It has been great, hasn't it? Has anything you've took away from it?
I think I've taken away a lot. I mean, I think it's really interesting because, I mean, my picture of a lawyer, obviously we've had your
Commercial solicitor
on the thing, but before that I always had like a vision of lawyers being very like formal and like not bubbly and like, I don't know, that's like my stereotypical view of like, maybe from school.
I do wear glasses sometimes. They're in my car.
I don't know, maybe that's like the stereotypical view that you like, that's the pictures you see at school or what they show you or whatever.
You're
and
right.
then I've come here and I'm like, do you know what, like, you're so bubbly and lovely and like, I never expected a lawyer to be like that.
That's a good thing.
I like that. I like that summing up.
Yeah, I do too. So we're just going to finish because my mum always listens and she always wants to know a very quick school run memory. How did you get to school and what were you, bus, on foot?
Yeah, I was bus. So like Cannon Slade, they come from all over Bolton, and then I think Ramsbottom way as well a lot came from. So 9:05 bus, see it sticks in your head. Bottom, I wasn't on the top. I was on the 2 tiers. I sat on the
bottom.
I was a bit of a geek. I mean, everyone said I was a hot geek at sixth form because I kind of was like getting more girly at that point. Like, I don't know, but I used to be like, get on with the geeks and the populace.
Yeah.
I was an in-betweener, and I like being like that because I'm like that now. I get on with
everybody.
People. So, yeah, the bus, that's how I remember school. And then we used to get off, like, near the... I mean, my husband actually lives really near, so I constantly have to drive past there when we go to his mum and dad's. But there was a little corner shop where we used to get the best tiffin ever made, and it's not there anymore.
So shout out to the shop and
that's
those people
one of
that
my
remember
memories. The tiffin was.
Did you have it in the morning and at night, or just as you got?
No, it was a treat. So if you got like good grades or whatever, you'd get a piece of tiffin. I'm still like that now. I like simple things as rewards. I'm not snobby like that. I love. A client once really listened to what I said. I'm not into all these posh chocolates, Don't get me wrong, I love an odd champagne truffle, but you cannot beat a Freddo. And I stand
by it. You can't beat a
Freddo. Like, for a bit of chocolate, honestly, if I was like on my deathbed, I'd want a Freddo. Any other chocolate, I'd be like, get me a Freddo.
That's superb.
Oh, yeah. And my grandma and nana used to take me a lot, as well as my mum and dad. So the working parent thing, I mean, I'll be relying on the grandparents when it's George as well. But I have a lot of memories of them taking me because my grandma had a sweet shop. So we always used to go there for pick a mix and stuff.
Oh, that's nice.
Well, Peter Kay used to go in it. He'll remember I'm very sweet shop.
I'm very sweet shop.
That's amazing.
So,
thank you for joining us on our school run. Thank you for your time. And we'll look forward to hearing, people's feedback on this episode because it's been an exciting one. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to another episode of the School Run podcast. If this is your first time listening, please go back and maybe listen to a few other episodes that we've previously recorded. There's lots of interesting topics, people's different roles and careers. We're sharing all of these stories to inspire and empower young people. That's our reason why. You don't have to have it all figured out at school. My co-host Liv is my 15-year-old daughter, and I just keep telling her that school is just a small chapter of life, and there's so much out there if you just say yes to those opportunities. You don't have to have it figured out at school. We're privileged to be having these conversations, and we're really thankful to our guests for coming on. Please would you hit the follow button on the podcast channel that you're listening to us on. This will really help us to grow and improve the podcast long term. It'd be lovely if you could write us a review on the podcast that you listen to us on and maybe give us a star rating. Lots of people have already bought us a virtual coffee so that we can have some chats and plan the content going forward. The link is www.buymeacoffee.com/the school run. www.buymeacoffee.com/the school run. And as Liv has already told you in the middle of this episode, we do have an Instagram, the school run _official, and we also have a LinkedIn showcase page. Would you just share this podcast if you've enjoyed it with one other person today? That would really help us. Thank you so much. Don't forget to click that follow button, and we'll see you again next Monday at 6 a.m.